said. It got a little bit bonkers. There's 4 things I want to talk about, and really it's chronological. I want to go through this section very chronologically. Mary Warren's testimony, and then the arrival of the other girls, including Abigail Williams. I want to talk about John Proctor's confession, because he confesses to something fairly major in this section. Why does he confess? What is he doing here? Elizabeth Proctor, her testimony, we have to look at that. And why does she lie? And then ultimately the end, the climactic scene at the end, the hysteria, Proctor's reaction, and then what does he really confess to in that last section. So let's jump over to the act. We're going to be in Act 3. We're going to start right on page 101. And we're going to see Mary Warren begin her testimony. And her testimony is important because obviously it sets this stage for what happens later, right? And she says here that she had been lying earlier, right? Then you tell me that. So Danforth on page 101, he questions her. You were callously lying. Is that what was happening? Answer me, right? I did, sir. Are you lying now? No, sir. I'm with God. I, sir. So Mary Warren is saying that what happened in the past, the testimony she gave prior, well, that was a lie, but now she's telling the truth. And she seems fairly strong, fairly resolute that she's not going to lie anymore. And then there's this subtle little stage direction again. She breaks out into sobs right as Susanna Walcott, Mercy Lewis, Betty Paris, and finally Abigail, right? Abigail Williams enters the court. And Abigail Williams, now she's going to be questioned. So Danforth and Hathorne, they start questioning her. Abigail, right? Mary Warren says that you sat beside her in court and did all these things. What say you? It's a lie, sir. So Abigail Williams is discrediting the testimony of Mary Warren, who said she was lying earlier, and now she's telling the truth. Abigail Williams says, no, she's still lying. And folks, this is a classic my word against theirs situation. Who do you believe? Who do you trust? And more importantly, who does the court believe? Who does the court trust? As the testimony continues, as Abigail's testimony continues, you notice kind of throughout this section, Mary Warren growing less and less confident. Till the top of page 106, Hathorne asks, you never saw no spirits, Mary, were never threatened or afflicted by any manifest of the devil or the devil's agents. Very faintly, no, sir. Right? And you're saying that all of this was a lie. That were pretense, sir. Danforth, I cannot hear you. Right? So she starts talking so softly, so subtly, because she's afraid. And she's not afraid of the judges. She's not really even afraid of John Proctor. What I think it's important to understand is that she's afraid of Abigail Williams. That is who she ultimately is afraid of. Now, as the scene continues, they suggest and they ask that maybe Mary Warren could actually perform some of the hysterical screaming and shouting that she had been doing in court in the month prior. But she's like, I can't. I can't do this. I can't make this feeling. I can't pretend anymore. Right? I cannot tell, but I did, sir. I heard the other girls screaming, and you, your honor, seemed so to believe them. We only sport at the beginning, sir, but then the whole world cried, Spirit, Spirit, and I promise you, Mr. Danforth, I only thought I saw them, but I did not. Now, what you see here is really Mary Warren describing hysteria. Let's try that again. She's describing hysteria. The experience of feeling this groupthink take hold to where it moves you to act in a non-logical way. That's what's going on. She's perfectly describing hysteria. Unfortunately, Abigail Williams is not going to back down. And it's unfortunate for her target, which quickly becomes Mary Warren. I want you to notice this on page 108. Danforth turns his wrath on Abigail. Is it possible, child, that the spirits that you see are an illusion, some deception that may cross your mind? Why, this is a base question, sir. She's basically saying, how dare you question me, Governor Danforth? I am Abigail Williams. I run this court. And she thinks that so strongly in her own mind that she actually threatens Danforth. Right? Child, I do not mistrust you. Let you beware, Mr. Danforth. Think you so mighty in power that of hell may not turn your wits? Beware of it. There is... Right? So she's threatening him. She's like, I could accuse you just as easily as I could accuse Elizabeth Proctor or Rebecca Nurse or Goody Good or any of these other people that I've thrown under the bus. I can get you too. The power of hell can take control of you too, Governor Danforth. But see, Abigail's got other tricks in her arsenal. It's not just threatening the judge, right? There's this subtle little detail again. Suddenly, her face turns, looking into the air above. It is truly frightened. What is it? Looking about the air, clasping her arms, as though cold. I know not what. A cold wind has come. Her eyes fall on Mary Warren. Uh-oh. You see, this is a problem for Mary Warren because now she's in the crosshairs of Abigail Williams. She's going to be the focus of her wrath. And Abigail's going to turn on her very quickly. And there's this whole scene on page 108 and 109 where she does. Until John Proctor intervenes. Because Proctor is going to have none of this. He's sick and tired of all of these shenanigans. He leaps at Abigail on 109 and screams, grabbing her by the hair and pulls her to her feet. How do you call heaven whore? Now this word whore is going to be used a fair amount in these pages, so just be aware. And you're going to hear me say it. I'm saying it because the text says it, all right? Proctor calls her a fairly derogatory term. Now this is a shock in the court, right? What is this guy John Proctor doing? Page 110, top of the page. In agony, he says, it is a whore, pointing at Abigail Williams. Not she, it. See, he loathes her so much that he doesn't even call her or refer to her as a person anymore, that she's a thing, right? And Proctor he recognizes here, there's only one way he can defeat the lies of Abigail Williams, and that is with the fullness of the truth. And so he offers that. I have known her, sir. I have known her. Now, this is him confessing to adultery. That's what he just confessed to. Like, I have known her in a biblical sense. You are a lecher? You're an adulterer? Yes, right? His voice is about to break. His shame is great. And he goes on to confess exactly what happens. And at the end of this confession on 110, he says, I lusted, and there is a promise in such sweat, but it is a whore's vengeance, and you must see it. So he fully confesses before the court to being an adulterer. Now the court cannot just take his word, even though Proctor on 111 says, I've made a bell of my honor, I've rung the doom of my good name. They can't just take it at face value. They have to have corroborating evidence, something to back up and support what he said. And so they bring in Elizabeth, right? They bring in Elizabeth. And Elizabeth's not really sure what's going on, and they ask her some general questions. But on page 113, there's a very simple question. Did your husband turn from you? Is your husband a lecher? Is he an adulterer? And Elizabeth says, no, sir. Now, Proctor was forced to turn his back when Elizabeth walked in. So was Abigail Williams. And earlier, on page 112, 111, Proctor reminds the court, in her life, she has never lied. Elizabeth Proctor never tells a lie. It's never happened. Except on page 113. She lies. Now, why does Elizabeth lie? Well, I think what Elizabeth is doing here is attempting to protect her husband. She doesn't know that he's confessed. She doesn't know that he's already admitted before the court that he's an adulterer. She's trying to protect his reputation. She doesn't want him to be taken down. And so she lies. She thinks she's doing a good thing by lying. She doesn't realize that she's just condemned herself and, more importantly, Proctor to a terrible fate. And that terrible fate begins to unfold on page 114, when Abigail Williams, in all of her anger and all of her hatred and all of her hysteria, she realizes that she has to go full-on crazy. And so a weird, wild, chilling cry screams up the ceiling. And that is by Abigail Williams. Now, this happens only after Reverend Hale, right, says this girl has always struck me as false. So when Abigail realizes that she might be back in the crosshairs, she's already threatened Mary Warren, she's already threatened Governor Danforth. Now she's going to take it up even another level. The hysteria, the psychoticness, it's going up another level. She starts screaming. And she thinks she sees a bird, right? right? There's a bird. And that bird has been brought forth by Mary Warren. All right? Envy is a deadly sin, Mary. It's Mary Warren who now is fully the focus. And again, it's interesting, the hysteria. It's not just Abigail Williams, right? Susanna Walcott starts jumping in. The other girls, right? The other girls begin to, right now it's just girls, right? This groupthink. They see their leader, Abigail Williams, become possessed, and so they all become possessed too. There's no possession going on. There's no work of the devil going on in this court. It's simply Abigail Williams pretending she's playing. She wants them to believe her because she wants to kill Elizabeth Proctor. And she knows that if she discredits Mary Warren, that's how she can do it, right? And Mary Warren might have been her friend, but now she's her enemy, right? They all start running around the courtroom, run to one wall, shielding their eyes. They let out a gigantic scream. This is on page 118. As though infected, opens her mouth and screams with them. Right now, Mary Warren's picking up that. Gradually, Abigail and the girls leave off until only Mary is left there, staring up at the bird. Proctor goes to her, and Mary Warren flips on him. Don't you touch me. Don't touch me. You're the devil's man. And it may be the most disturbing part of this whole scene. Mary Warren turns her back on John Proctor. She turns her back on the truth, and she's back to being a tool, a puppet of Abigail Williams. So much so, right, that on page 119, Abby, I'll never hurt you. They all watch as Abigail, out of her infinite charity, reaches out and draws the sobbing Mary to her, and they look up at Danforth. Abigail embraces Mary. She had just been a few lines earlier accusing Mary Warren of being a witch, and now she's hugging her. It's okay, Mary. It wasn't your fault. It's John Proctor's fault. He's the devil's man, right? He's the evil one. And Proctor, rather than defending himself, when Governor Danforth says, "What say you?" Proctor, his mind wild and breathless, says, I say, God is dead. He says, a fire is burning. I hear the boot of Lucifer. I see his filthy faith, and it's my face and yours, Danforth. It's all of us together. And Proctor is arrested. You see, Proctor realizes here at the end of this act, this is my interpretation, so you're open to your own. And the reason why he says God is dead is that he he recognizes that he cannot save his wife. It's lost. And he wants to make sure that Abigail Williams never gets what she ultimately wants. Remember, that appendix, that scene at the end of Act 2, we know Abigail Williams wants John Proctor as her husband. She wants to become his wife. And if he's in prison, if he's thrown in jail, if he's executed as a witch, then she never gets what she wants. The end, you're pulling heaven down and raising up a whore. Look at your justice. Look at what your justice has gotten. Now, this is not the end of the play, although this could be a very strong ending. And we'll see what happens tomorrow when we dig into Act 4.